this is SynaMax. For those who don't follow my YouTube channel, I'm an electronic music composer-producer, and for a hobby I search for synthesizers and sample libraries that were used in some of my favorite music and media. One of my favorite games growing up was Metroid Prime, and I've documented my work of reverse engineering the soundtrack through my various YouTube videos. This has led me to the discovery of several synthesizers and sample libraries, including a line of synths known as Korg Electribe. There were several various models released, each with their own unique functionality, but we're going to be focusing on the Korg Electribe ER1 for this video. Now, like the other Electribe models, the ER1 is very interesting because it is a groove box, which is a type of synth that was marketed to DJs and producers who wanted a sequencer and knobs for total control during performances. This is where the device shines, and because of this, the ER1 is considered a classic in the drum machine community. But instead of focusing on what the synth can do, we're going to talk about how the ER1 was specifically used to get a better understanding of the music production for these games. And by the end of this video, I think you'll understand just how important this drum machine is to the signature sound of Metroid Prime. Let's get started. So first off, let's get a quick overview of what the ER1 is exactly. As mentioned earlier, this is a groove box, and therefore you get this cool 16-step sequencer and lots of knobs to tweak different parameters. Like its sister model, the EA1, it uses a virtual analog synth engine to generate 4 voices that you can play to create various percussive sounds. It also comes loaded with 4 PCM samples. These are an open and close hi-hat, a hand clap, and a crash cymbal. These sounds are important, we'll get back to them later. In addition to that, there's 2 audio inputs that can be used as a sound source, but to my knowledge, this wasn't used in the games. That leads me to my next question. What games and tracks from the Prime Trilogy did the ER1 appear on? Well, this is where things get interesting. As far as I know, the ER1 itself was only used in a handful of tracks from Metroid Prime 1. I don't believe it is used in Metroid Prime 2 or 3 at all. Of course, as I continue searching for sounds, this can change, but right now the evidence points that the ER1 was not used for the sequel games. However, samples of the ER1 have been used instead. To show you what I mean, let's do a sound comparison. I'm going to take the crash cymbal from the ER1 and turn the pitch all the way down. You recognize that sound, don't you? That's used in a lot of Prime tracks from Frigate Orpheon to Omega Pirate. Now, let's compare that same slowed down crash with one of the samples from Uncivilised Grooves, which is a sample library that was used extensively throughout all 3 Prime games. As it turns out, an ER1 was used to create some of those iconic samples from Uncivilised Grooves. It's not just this crash cymbal either. Let's take a look at the open hi-hat, and again, pitch it downward. There you get Torvus Bog and Talon Overworld. Let's check out preset C56. This last voice here is used in Versus Flagra. And finally, C25 and a couple other presets feature the hand claps that are used for Phase on Mines. I think Kenji Yamamoto must have recognized these ER1 samples when going through the Uncivilised Grooves library. Maybe that was one of the reasons why he decided to use that sample library for the soundtracks. So, if the majority of Metroid Prime's percussion samples are from this sample library, which tracks actually use the ER1 synth itself? As of this recording, I recognize 3 tracks from Metroid Prime 1 using modified presets and patterns from the ER1, and these are Phendrana Drifts, Frigate Orpheon, and Frigate Orpheon Biohazard Containment, which is a deleted track that was used only in the pre-release demo version of the game. Phendrana Drifts is pretty simple, it's just this preset, C34 After Hours. Then we change the tempo to 120. And during the pattern, I mute the drums and let the hi-hats play. I think Kenji Yamamoto recorded the drums separately because there's less delay on the kicks than on the hi-hats. Here, I recorded those parts separately and sequenced them in FL Studio. The Frigate Orpheon track uses the other drum preset from the ER1, but it's been modified quite a bit. The preset here is C63, I Need a Voice Too. First, we set the tempo to 76. Then we disable the tempo lock delay. And then we modify the pattern a little bit. To make things easier, I decided to record everything separately and arrange the audio clips to match the original reference track. You can see how the siren sound is on a different tempo than the rest of the pattern. The clap samples, again, are a modified version of the original pattern from the ER1. Several notes have been muted, and just 4 of them remain. The hi-hats are very, very interesting because at 2 points during the song, there is what I like to call a stutter. And I was able to recreate this effect by playing the MIDI data while also triggering the sequencer on the ER1 at the same time, creating a double hi-hat effect. I'm not entirely sure if this is the same way that Yamamoto-san created this track, but that's how I did it, and it sounded pretty darn close, so I'm happy with the results. It was while I was working with this that I noticed that MIDI CCs work very differently on the ER1 compared to regular synthesizers. In layman's terms, a MIDI CC or continuous controller allows me to map any knob on my MIDI controller to any synth. This is very useful when it comes to automating controls on a synthesizer. However, with the ER1, for whatever reason, it requires 3 CC assignments. So I have to assign 3 knobs to control 1 parameter of the synth. So that's a very interesting problem with this synthesizer. You cannot automate it as easily as other synthesizers. As you can see, that was a lot of work, and that was just for one track. My theory is this: it was just easier to use samples than modifying presets on the ER1. Also, the need for 3 MIDI CCs really hampers automation, which is used throughout all the soundtracks. I think Yamamoto-san got the drum machine early on during the game's development, and later on decided it was best and quicker to just stick with the sample library. So while a physical ER1 was used on only a couple of tracks from the first game, its modified samples via an obscure sample library have been instrumental in creating a new, unique, consistent sound for the Prime soundtracks. And it's because of this we must acknowledge the importance of the ER1 when it comes to the unique beats in Metroid Prime. This is SynaMax. Thanks for watching.